Your life.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Life, Love, and Money Show with Summer and
Jen, hey.
hey, welcome. This is our pop up chat. We do periodic pop up chats. So today, oh my goodness, we're going to be talking about what Adele canceled.
Right.
So,
This is gonna be
so
interesting.
we do have the clip, but before we go on with the clip, we kind of want to give you kind of a background of what's going on here. So Adele tearfully canceled her 3 month, or at least her run of concerts, her beginning concert at Caesar's Palace. So she was supposed to be in residency in Las Vegas, and this was her kickoff show. And in the last 24 hours, she canceled. She canceled right before the show was to begin. And so there are many different stories about why she canceled. But first, before we get into that, we are going to show you the clip. But the reason we're here talking about this today is for many reasons. It has to deal with entrepreneurship, it has to deal with mindset, it has to do with getting your head back in the game, and it has to do with how does the show go on when you run into some conflict or challenges.
Yeah, literally and figuratively. The
Right.
show must go on.
The show must go on. So, how does that happen? But let's show the clip so
Yeah,
that people get an understanding of what we're talking about here.
sure. Let's play a snippet.
Awesome.
Hi, listen, I'm so sorry, but my show ain't ready. We've tried absolutely everything that we can to put it together in time and for it to be good enough for you, but we've been absolutely destroyed by delivery delays and COVID. Half my crew, half my team are down with COVID, they still are, and it's been impossible to finish the show. And I can't give you what I have right now. And I'm gutted. And I'm sorry it's so last minute. We've been awake for over 30 hours now trying to figure it out, and we've run out of time. And I'm so upset and I'm really embarrassed, and I'm so sorry to everyone that's travelled again. I'm really, really sorry. I'm really sorry. We're on it. We're going to reschedule all of the dates. We're on it right now. And I'm going to finish my show and I'm going to get it to where it's supposed to be now for you. I'm so sorry. It's been impossible. We've been up against so much and it just ain't ready.
All
So,
right.
yeah.
So there it is. So that is kind of what we're talking about. So we're talking about, no, this is what we're talking about, what Adele canceled. So there's many different levels to this. So some say that she canceled, and she's telling us she canceled because they weren't ready. They weren't ready to go on, that maybe some of her crew was sick with COVID. Obviously she's distraught. Um, but the other thing that I've read too is, according to the Sun, Daily Mail, and other sources, they said when she saw the finished pool that they had created for her show, she did not like the finished product, and so she refused to take part in the concert, the series of concerts, until they got this fixed. And so she described the pool as a baggy old pond and refused point blank to stand in the middle of it. So it could have been that. It could have been that, her crew wasn't ready. It could have been that people were sick. It could have been yada. It could have been a lot of different reasons. It could have been that she was just having some issues with at this time, and that she wasn't ready. Maybe she wasn't ready. I don't know the exact reason. We don't know, but we wanted to bring this up because there's so many things involved here in relation to the show going on, mindset, entrepreneurship. Um, and what do you ask yourself? What are you telling yourself at that moment? Like, what kind of messages are you feeding yourself? What is your mindset? What is your emotional, status at that point? What is your strategy? And so there's so much to be talked about here. Jen, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. One of the things that came to mind when I was seeing this. I saw it originally on Instagram, and then I saw you saw it.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay, cool. Maybe we could talk about this. You know, a lot of times you are faced with those moments, whether you have an event, you were going to host a workshop, you were supposed to, whatever. There are so many different things, especially in our space, in entrepreneurial space, where we have things well intended and planned, and then something doesn't go right. And so even Summer and I have been through this a couple times. In you know, we weren't putting on a giant concert, but you know, to the extent of that we had to think about, well, what are we going to do? Do we completely cancel it, or And so when I see what had happened, when I saw what had happened, I thought, okay, is she having mental breakdown? Is she just not feeling good? And I get it, because there have been instances that we've seen in the past, especially with the Olympics. We saw that some people had gone through that, and it's just like, that's when you take that step back and go, okay, let's have compassion, because people really need that space. They need to just stop and take care of themselves, and I am all for that. So at first I was like, okay, is this? And then I started seeing, like, is this more of like a technical issue, and it's not that you couldn't do something? So, as you know, and then Summer added all this other stuff. I was like, oh, I didn't even know that part. And now it even just makes it more, whoa, you could have done something.
Right.
And so that's the question, where it's did she do the right thing? Because the other part, I'm looking at the other side, all the people who had purchased tickets. And see, also I'm thinking about, if I was one of those people, and I ended up flying from another country, I booked my hotel, and I had to take off from work and request vacation time and use up those hours. Yeah, you can tell me, like, well, just make the most of it and have vacation, but then that's not the point. It's like, could the show have gone on? Could you not have figured out an alternative? So I think about all those things, and I would be so angry. And then there's the other side of the dynamic, where there's other people, rushing in to defend her. Like, well, I don't even know what the other side said. Like, they're mad at the other fans who are angry. So there's a lot of emotion going on. There's a lot of decision making that maybe could have been done in a different way, from a different perspective. But, at the end of the day, the people, the fans who bought the tickets and are upset, I think about, in our entrepreneurial space, who are the people in your community that you're serving? What is it that we're constantly doing for their benefit? How are we pouring into them and giving them what they need? And every decision that we make is I know for Summer and I, we're always driven by that. How are we showing up the way we need to? Do we provide what we need to for the community that we're building? Or do we just bail out? And so I know for her and I can say there have been times when we had to sit and go, like, okay, what do we want to do now? It didn't work out the way we wanted. So what can we do now? And the alternative has never been completely abandon the ship.
Right. And I love everything that you mentioned just now, Jen. You started off with, having compassion for somebody if they are having potentially, some emotional issue. And I get it. We all have gone through something similar in regards to, maybe we just felt off, or we didn't feel right, or that's okay.
Yeah.
Be honest with your public, be honest with the people that you're serving, and go back to not just how can the show still go on, but go back to, and we talk about this all the time, and this is exactly why we talk about starting at your foundation and understanding your core values, your pillars from which you serve others, and your foundation of why. What's your why? Think about others, think about your why. And when you're thinking about yourself and others, what's your why? Why did you start this? Why did you begin? Have you gotten so far away from where this all began? Wanting to bring joy to others, wanting to share your music, having a soulful purpose. So to me, that's really important, because we're looking at emotions, we're looking at mindset, we're looking at strategy, we're looking at your demographic and who you're serving, your clients. So it's like, as Jen had said, and she mentioned, we're not Adele, and we're not those big celebrities and entertainers, but it's all relative. We're still serving a population. We're still, we still have a business that is important to others. It is important to us. And why is it important to us? because we had a reason. We started with some passion. We started with a goal to help and support others. So how is she in this instance? Is it about her, or is it about somebody else? Is it about her fans? Because yes, she does have those mega fans who are saying, "Oh my gosh, we definitely support her. We're definitely, but there are other people who spent over 900 pounds on a ticket. That's thousands of dollars on a
Yeah.
ticket to be at that first show. So, if the instance was, you have a smaller crew, if the instance was that you weren't happy with some part of the production, how could that show have still gone on? Do
Yes.
you think that those fans, mega fans, fans who just bought the tickets, people who are coming to see the show, do you think they would have been okay with, folks, I had a bit bigger production planned. This is how it rolled out, but I still wanted to be here for you.
Exactly. I love that you mentioned that because I would have had rather have heard that than I'm sorry and I'm just not going to do it. Because you can't, I mean, even if you refunded me the tickets, the cost of my tickets, you can't give me back the time I took off. You can't give me back vacation. You're not going to go to my employer and grant me like, 5 extra vacation days or sick time or whatever you did.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's a disappointment because I would have weighed, for me personally, I know I would have weighed out the two. What are the outcomes? I can completely like not go, and then what? Or I could say, you know what, this is what's going on. This is what we have to do. Otherwise, I'm not going to cancel it because I know all of you either flew out somewhere, spent time, resource, money, everything. I would have been more, I think I would have taken that kind of hit than to just come back out and say, like, we're not doing it. I'm sorry. And then have all these people, completely angry. So
Right.
those are the tough decisions that you run into as an entrepreneur. You're always making tough decisions, and even in your regular life, you are always making tough decisions. So I think one of the things that we can take away from this is look at the options and look at the alternatives and look at the outcomes. It also reminds me like philosophy class, right? When
Right.
you have to make those hard decisions. I'll never forget that one problem. We stayed on it for like 3 months. There's a railroad track, it goes straight, and then there's another part of the railroad track that goes this way, and you had the power to move the train, either goes straight and it crashes into a major city, or it goes this way. And it's like that whole idea of playing God. It's also that idea of like, well, I have the ability to change the trajectory of these things, but which direction am I going to go into? And so we always look at things like that, right? When we make these decisions, what are the possible outcomes for every scenario that we have the ability to say yes to and no to? And so I just think about this whole thing, and I'm like, yeah, I know for sure we would not have handled it that way. And like I said, Summer and I have been in situations where, okay, do we cancel? No, but what do we do? What's the alternative? And one thing I was sharing with Summer earlier was, I remember, for those of you who are huge fans, you might have seen that Oprah special she did at the Los Angeles Observatory. I think it was like 2 months ago, something like that. It was during the holidays, and it was beautiful, simple. She had an orchestra in the background and literally the microphone. I wouldn't even be happy with that. Forget the pond and whatever this stage, fantastical thing that was happening. I'm sure it was great, but to cancel it, I mean, now we have this backlash. You can't refund everything. So it's one of those things. I think we have to be very careful when we are making decisions. Are we looking at all possible outcomes, all possibilities, like, and what's the lesser of the two evils sometimes when it comes down to that?
I love that you mentioned that example of the philosophy example of the train, and you're making a choice. We had a couple of examples in when I was going to law school. So one of those was, if something were to occur and you're standing somewhere and you see this meteor coming down, what would go through your mind and what would be some of your choices? And you got to look at all sides, right?
Yes.
So before that meteor hits Earth, right? What would you do? And think of all those different options. Would you go into an underground tunnel? Would you go into da da da? Would you, what would you do? There was another example of if you're a captain of a ship and you know that you're going to sink if you don't close off part of that ship. The ship is already taking on water and you have to shut off part of that ship, but there are 5 people down there.
Yeah.
Do you shut off that portion of the ship to
To
save
save the
the
rest.
95
Yeah.
people, right? So it's like, so do you not go in the pond or change something about that show and stand in the middle of that stage with a mic
Yeah.
so you can serve the bigger population?
That's a beautiful example, Summer. It's exactly that. I was watching what was that movie? Oh, recently we were watching Armageddon. It's that same thing, you know, does Bruce Willis kill himself for the sake of the entire earth?
Right. Exactly. Right. So it's like all these examples, and we have to go through this. And we thought this was such an important topic to touch on today because it does have to do with entrepreneurship. It does have to do with mindset. It does have to do with the decisions that we are confronted with and our service to our clients, our service to ourselves as well. I get it. I get it. If something's emotionally happening with you, it's okay to say, I need this time. I'm
Yeah.
not ready. And if that's the case, it's okay to be honest about it. It's okay to say, listen, please forgive me. I just need some time. I need some time for myself. The show will go on, but this is what I needed to do for me. And trust me, people are forgiving. They understand. There are many people here who did understand. But at the same time, if it were something that was a technical issue, if it were something else that where the show could go on, the decisions that we might have made might have been very different, have looked very different. Because even as maybe small as we are as entrepreneurs in regards to where we are now, not be having that limelight, because we will get there. Here's the thing. Every time Jen travels, every time I go somewhere, you know what? If it lands on the day of that show, Jen will be standing out where there are bugs hitting her in the
Locusts and
face
all, like the 10 Commandments.
with her phone like this for a half an hour doing the show.
Oh my gosh.
Because it's important to us. It's important that we show up every day, or every show, right? And so I get it when we have to cough. I mean, it's going to be because we're really sick or something's happening where we just couldn't make it. And I used to work when I started off in human services. I started off working in group homes, and I had a group home full of young women, young girls, and ranging from 12 to 17. And they would cuss me out when I first got there. They would just like, oh, chaos. They wanted to create chaos in the house. Once it started getting it together, once things started, having habits, once things started, having certain times where we had dinner, we did our outing, and it had structure, and we were creating that structure. 10 months down the road, the girls were like, oh my gosh, when are you coming back? Oh my gosh, what are we going to do today? Oh my goodness, what are we going to do for our outing? They knew what to expect.
Yeah.
They had a better idea, and that created stability, that created understanding, and so if something did happen, they knew it wasn't because I didn't care about it. It was because something really needed my attention, and I still thought about them. I still cared about them. But, that stuff happens. It does happen. But let's be honest, be honest with the people that care about you, because these people do care about you. And so we're talking about this because how could you have made the show go on? Because even if things weren't as precise or as specific as you wanted them to be, or what you envisioned them to be, because they're there for you. So again, I go back to, what's your why? What's your foundation built from? What are your core values? What are the pillars from which you serve? And these are all things that Jen and I talk about when we work with clients too. So it's so important, because you can always go back to that roadmap and you'll never get lost. You'll never get lost when you go back to that foundation and go, okay, this is the reason I'm doing it. And I'm going to be on that stage, or I'm going to show up for that show, or I'm going to be there for my clients. I'm going to open the door of my store today.
Yeah. I mean, imagine like how many people will just simply put on a concert with acoustics, singing, and a guitar sitting on a stool. Like, even if you just did that, your fans would still adore you and love you and all these different things versus like, hey, we're not doing it at all.
Right.
Yeah, it's such a it's tricky and it's not tricky. You know, I think about how like my gosh, you know, what could have been the alternative? And you know, you're absolutely right. We always think of things when it comes to our show, the things that we're doing. I mean, Summer and I both travel a lot, and there's always some way we figure it out. Like, we're already like in two different time zones, but you know, I appreciate that we have that discipline, and again, because our why is so compelling, we know how important it is for us to show up and you know, connect and stay connected, and always keeping, you know, others in our mind, and why are we doing this, and trust me, there's times when we're, you know, you're not always going to feel like you're on and you're like, hey, yeah, and we do because it's so fun, but there's going to be those moments offline where you're just like, yeah, I'm burnt out, I'm tired. But when you come back to those core values, like Summer said, when you come back to your why, you're rejuvenated. This is why we emphasize this so much, because it is so necessary for us to go back to those things and go, okay, all right, you know, you lose perspective, but that's why when you do have your core values and understanding what it is that you're doing, you can go back to that and get you know, like your GPS recalibrating. It's like bringing you back.
Yeah. And we do need that refresher. We do need that break. That's why it's so important. And we talk about this as well. So important to care about your wellness. It's funny that you mentioned this, Jen, about, you know, recalibration, because somebody asked me last night, you know, if you could take a break, because I was like, yeah, I could use a 2 week break, because I usually take 2 weeks out of the year and go overseas, go on a long trip. But because of, you know, what's happening in our world today, my husband thought, and I thought, well, you know, it's best to stay at home, closer to home, not, you know, not go out of the country. And you went out of the country last week. You know how many barriers that put in front of you in regards to what you had to do to go and come back. And so I just am not willing to take those steps right now, or the risk. And so for me, that 2 week break is so meaningful, and I have yet to get that 2 week break, right? And so what am I doing to implement into my life some wellness techniques that are going to give me that respite? And somebody asked me, so if you did get that 2 week break yesterday, would you still post and would you still do all those things? And I said, you know, funny enough that you ask, because every year when I do take that 2 week break, yeah, that is absolutely put into my schedule where I do post, because I don't want to use third party posting services because it screws up our algorithm or whatever the case may be. So I'm always thinking about, how do I strategize this while taking care of my wellness, while taking care of my business, and making sure I show up for the people that I'm serving.
Yeah.
So, which I think this is exactly why we brought this up today. So on that note, any last words, Jen?
Nope. I think we said it all. And I think, yeah, I'll just reemphasize, just think about your actions and the consequences, good or bad, in order for you to make a good, sound decision before you do it. I think it's really important to weigh that out and think about what's the better alternative between these two options. And can you live with that? Because yeah, see, now I'm going down a rabbit hole. Like, think of like marketing. Looking at marketing, there are so many examples of marketing that were very racially insensitive. And it's one of those moments, is like, oh yeah, we shouldn't have done that. We were, you know, then they do the public apology, and it's just like, how did you not think of this? How did you not think of like what were going to be the ramifications of that going out there? And now you want to say sorry? It's like that. And some of these are so blatantly obvious. I don't even know how they could apologize for something that they completely missed. But you know, hey, we're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna make mistakes, and so it happens. But then you have to ask yourself, did you really think about everything before you made those decisions? And if you didn't, then like, well, that lesson learned the hard way, and now you can move forward and look at that misstep as something that you can do as you gain wisdom to now move on to the next, next day and make better decisions in the future.
Absolutely. So with that, just know that we're here. We do these pop-ups every now and again, at least once a week. You can also catch our show on Thursday, which is today's Tuesday, in a couple of days on Instagram at the Life, Love, and Money Show.
Time change too. Time change.
Oh, yes. You want to tell them about a different time this week as well?
Yes, this week's show, we gotta post about this. We have a special guest. Summer's amazing friend, Christy, and she'll be on with us. But we are doing it at 1 p.m. Pacific, right?
Which is also 4 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah,
exactly. I know, it's so out of our schedule. Exactly. So Christy James, who is a VJ DJ, for iHeart Radio and multiple stations across the nation, you name it, on iHeart. She's going to be joining us, and she is also a veteran. Her origin story is amazing. You're not going to want to miss our show. It's fantastic. Yeah. And by the way, folks, if you've missed any of this, you can go on to our YouTube site as well, the Life, Love, and Money Life, Love, and Money Show YouTube site, and check it out. Check out some of the things we talk about, because really our focus is life, love, money, and emerging entrepreneurship. So, our courses revolve around emerging entrepreneurship. And so if you have questions about that, make sure you go to, to check out what we do at the lifeloveandmoney.com website. But in the meantime, definitely go to our YouTube page, because we could really use your support there. And there's lots of really great stuff that we provide in regards to emerging entrepreneurship talks and chats and such. All right, everybody, have an amazing day. Thank you, Jen, for showing up today.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Take care.